Hey, 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 welcome to Tammy's Table. I'm Tammy Gaines coming to you live from New Jersey. I am super excited today to talk to my very good friend, Ed Blunt. I will get to you in just a second. Listen, if you're here, I'm assuming that you want to learn about all things resilience. I think we live in a time where there is so much going on. Polishing up your skills on resilience couldn't hurt. And what do I mean by that? I mean by bouncing back from whatever's going on, um, emerging stronger through whatever challenge you're facing. And I am excited about Tammy's Table because every week we bring you a program that hopefully makes it feel like you're back in that favorite kitchen from your childhood where people were talking and cooking and solving the world's problems, but particularly the personal ones. So every week we're going to examine resilience from a different angle. And I am so excited to have my special guest and my very special friend, Ed Blunt, on with me today. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored that I got the invite.
You knew you were getting the invite. Don't act all surprised.
You're a
I
busy, high profile woman. I knew I was going to get it maybe couple months down the line.
Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, for those of you who don't know, um, I think Ed is one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. He is a mindset trainer. He's an entrepreneur. I've heard him speak on stages with people like Les Brown. I've heard him on the airwaves before there was ever podcasts. There was radio shows, and he was on many. He's an internationally recognized motivational speaker and trainer, and like I said, he's an entrepreneur. So, Ed, thank you again for coming on. I know that you have a very unique perspective on resilience because you're a motivational speaker. You spend your life helping people get to a better version of themselves.
Yeah, that is definitely true. And I think one of the starting points that we have to go to is, how is that defined? The capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. And all of us have trial and tribulation. And so the first step is, do we have enough character? Do we have enough intestinal fortitude? Do we have enough mental toughness and endurance to just handle that blow? If you look at, unfortunately, the more than 50,000 lives lost in Turkey, but more than million plus families are displaced and they're having to live in tents and there's
Hmm.
no plumbing and there's hygiene. And so they have to just withstand that
Hmm.
initial blow and then to recover quickly. So can you put on a positive face, if you will, looking towards the future, even though the current circumstances are bleak, are desperate. And this is why I draw so much inspiration from our global community, because I think we in the States, we do live a fairly comfortable life, even those of us who are quote unquote struggling. When you look at the global community, you'll see and encounter people who are dealing with some circumstances, whether it's displaced families in Ukraine because of the war, or these individuals that we're talking about in Turkey, where they're just trying to figure out, man, I just want to brush my teeth. I haven't brushed my teeth in like 3 weeks, and I got to figure out how I'm going to live. So I think if we take the time to draw inspiration from examples like that, we can really exhibit what resiliency is. And again, to the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. Most people want to marinate in their misery. Most people want to hit repeat on what happened to me and who did me wrong. And they just want to keep reliving and relitigating their past grievances instead of focusing on, what do I need to change in order to create a better future moving forward right now.
Yeah, that is so. First of all, I am inspired just like you are by what's going on globally. But I do think there are instances of resilience here here nationally, and we don't always recognize them because the media is it's just so messy. Like, you can't always see, like, the good news and the good stories from all of, like, the bad stuff that's going on in the world.
Yes.
So, I was inspired by, uh, the people in Ohio, in that town in Ohio where the train overturned and contaminated everything.
Yeah,
What
Palestine.
did they
Yes.
do? Yeah, they did 2 most of them pivoted very quickly and decided to use the media to their advantage to get the, company to come in and do the right thing. And Erin Brockovich showed up. Like, I love that movie. I love her story. She's been an environmentalist forever.
She's awesome.
She's amazing. So, you know, what are your thoughts? That's a different level of it's a different spin on resilience, right? Like, what you're talking about is mindset. But I also think maybe what I'm talking about is mindset also. It's like, how do you quickly pivot? How do
Yeah.
you turn this in your advantage? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, because what you and I are talking about in real time are physical transformations that force people to have to level up. Like if your home is destroyed, you have no choice. You got to figure it out.
Hmm.
With most people, if you're talking about the mindset, it's really dealing with things that are more mental. So if I'm not having the success on my job that I expected, I have to have the mental resiliency to be able to handle constructive criticism. And then I have to pivot quickly. What can I do to get better? If my relationship is not doing well, I have to be able to look at my role in that dynamic and then pivot quickly to what do I need to change about myself to bring a better opportunity for success in the relationship. So that is definitely a mental thing. And unfortunately or fortunately, human beings are creatures of habit. So if we habituate complacency, if we habituate mediocrity, if we habituate making excuses, justifying, rationalizing our situations, well then you just get comfortable and you're in I love that. I saw this quote: most people are in just enough pain to not do anything about it.
Hmm.
Well then you're not making those changes and you don't even engage on the field of resiliency. You haven't even stepped into the field of play because you're just comfortable and being miserable, if you will, just kind of
Yeah.
getting along to going along to get along.
That's so real. Somebody, I'm not going to name any names, but somebody called me over the weekend and they were complaining about every different part of their life, their relationship, their money, their job, their this, like all the key areas of your life. And I said, are you just calling to complain or do you actually want to get into like solution mode? And they were like, I'm just calling to complain. So first of all, right, Ed, thank you for your honesty. Thank you for not like wasting my time, but why won't people part their own rescue?
Yeah. Again, the comfort zone. It's so dangerous. So dangerous. It is like carbon monoxide. It slowly chokes the life out of your ambitions, your goals, and your dreams. It's familiar and it feels good, even though it doesn't. That doesn't sound right. Me saying it. So, like people feel good struggling. People feel good in unhappy relationships. People feel good not having the resources that they would like to have. Yes, because it's familiar. So they're much more comfortable in the familiar, even if it's not to their success, than they are risking something brand new. Let me try on a new suit of being proactive and changing my situation, a new suit, and getting uncomfortable and being okay with being uncomfortable, learning something new, taking on a new skill, putting myself in a vulnerable situation so that I can take responsibility for the role that I've been playing in my own destruction. It's just hard. It's hard for
Mhm.
people to look in the mirror and own those truths.
Okay, so here's the question. And by the way, that's amazing insight, and I honor all of it because I think you're dead on. Um, so you and I are both in this motivational speaking and training world, and we have lots and lots of colleagues out there, like thanks to the internet, like more than we can even ever remember. And there's people out there that say, like, you just have to take this webinar one time and you will totally change your mindset and be able to live a better life that you've always dreamed of. So my question for you is, do you believe that creating lasting habits of resilience are able to be done in a snap of a finger in 90 minutes?
Well,
Or is
you
it
know,
a longer process?
to be fair, that's a lot of that is marketing, right? So people will say that because they want you. They understand that human beings inherently want something for nothing. So they know if they offer something for nothing, they could at least get you in the room. And then when they get you on that 90-minute webinar or Zoom, they're going to pitch you on a program that's longer, that creates more revenue for themselves. And there's nothing, I'm not
We're not
belittling
knocking the
that.
hustle. We're
Yeah,
not knocking
exactly. That is what it is.
the hustle.
But it is a lifestyle. It is a choice. And we do live in a culture of people are professional students. People would rather learn how to do something than to actually do it. They'll take your course, they'll take my course, they'll take 10 other courses, and a year will go by and they will have actually implemented little to nothing. But they'll believe that I'm doing something. I'm moving closer because I'm taking all these courses. Where in reality, I would rather a person take a 90-minute session, take 3 points of teaching, and focus on implementation for the next 11 and a half months, and don't take any more courses. Why don't you implement the 3 nuggets you got from this little 90-minute segment, and let's see you actualize that and make that a part of habit in your success journey, in your success life. Most people don't want to do that because that requires discipline, it requires commitment, it requires change. And I love that book, Change or Die. People would rather die, literally, than change.
So Ed, I'm like trying not to laugh because it's also true. You are one of the most disciplined people I've ever met. And by the way, it's not discipline to a fault, meaning like you don't have to go work out at 6 o'clock in the morning as long as you get your workout in that day.
Yeah.
How do you, and I'm sure this is longer. We have like a minute to the break, but let's just start on this. How do you develop habits of discipline if you've lived a completely undisciplined life?
Ooh, that's ouch.
I know it's heavy. I told you I'm bringing it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like in your 30s or 40s or 50s, you've lived your entire life rather undisciplined. Where do you start?
That goes to the want to. There's a great book called, and you actually wrote about this. It's in one of you were talking about your platform, getting back to the kitchen table. There's a book called Kitchen Table Wisdom, and the book talks about people that have encountered life-altering situations, illnesses, diagnoses, and how because of that brush with possible death, it really changed them internally. And if someone has not been disciplined, they're looking at 30, 40, 50 plus years of a bad habit. In order to change that, there has to be a compelling reason why. And it's got to start with why. That book Simon Sinek wrote, Start with Why. Why do you want to change? What do you stand to lose if you don't change? Not so much what you stand to gain, because people are more motivated by pain than they are pleasure. So if we start with what you stand to lose, and you really go into that space and you really explore it and you really write it down and you really spend time with it and you allow it to affect you emotionally and spiritually, and you feel that pain and you sit with it, that you have an opportunity to create some internal motivation to start changing your behavior. But for sure, it will be one of the hardest things that you ever do.
Yeah, so Ed, let's let people sit with that for a minute. Talk about marinating. Like that's pretty deep. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, let's stay on this topic. of creating. First of all, using pain to create discipline, I think, is brilliant. But we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with Ed Blunt.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Solidity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Hey, welcome back to Tammy's Table. I am so excited to have Ed Blunt as my guest today. He's not just a special guest, he's a special friend. Um, Ed, we took out, we left the break talking about whether or not somebody's pain is strong enough to motivate them to start living a disciplined life. Because you were saying maybe that was one of the starting points to resilience.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's hard for people because if you're not happy with where you are, you will tend to create a structure where you have escapes from that. So let's say someone is working a 10 or 12-hour shift at the factory. They know that they're being overworked and underpaid, and they're making just enough to get from one month to the next. So, in order to alleviate some of that suffering, they have their outlets, whether if it's self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, sex, entertainment, television, sports. So they have these outlets that they plug into, so they create a routine of escape. And in doing that, they've habituated a life that they can actually manage. And so they're saying to themselves, listen, it took me a lot just to be able to acknowledge that what I'm doing is not going to get me what I want. I am overworked and underpaid, but at least I can have a couple of beers and I can have a good time and I can go out to the club and I can watch my favorite sporting event and I can decompress and I got at least 1 or 2 days off a week. So I'm good. And so they rest in that space. And the more they rest in that space, the further away they get from what it is that they really want. And the further they get away from what they really want, the less they're likely to believe that they can create that. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is why we hear that phrase, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, because they're both are constantly affirming a future that they believe is possible for them. If that's a future possibility of continuing to be poor and without, future possibility of continuing to thrive, be rich and successful.
It's so interesting, Ed, because you could listen, this is with anything, right? It's not just about money, rich or poor. It's also like about your journey with your weight, maybe. Your, journey to launching your own business. Like there's a million ways that it shows up in your life. And I've been like, I think we've probably both been at some point in our life at a point where it feels like what you really want is so far out of reach, you're never going to get there. I think we've all, like, I empathize with people that feel that way sometimes. But how do you stop that thought in its tracks?
So that statement, that's a curious statement. I've never felt that way, and I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm
I
never.
have. So let me just speak for myself. I've definitely feel like there's so many mountains to overcome. I can't even see where I'm going to reach this.
So here's my thought process. Okay, so let's say you and I are going to climb Mount Everest, and we're not mountain climbers. We have no experience. That is a Herculean task. Well, my first thought is to reverse engineer it because number one, the thing that we want to do, and this is true for 99.9% of the population, whatever it is that you want to do, someone's already done it. Someone's doing it right now in real time. So if we reverse engineer whatever that outcome is, we can identify individuals who have already experienced it and are currently experiencing it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, well, how long did it take for you to actually build up your body to a point where you could surmount Mount Everest? Oh, it took me this long. I trained, I did this, I did that. Okay, great. So now we have a blueprint, and we could start to craft as a part of our weekly regimen. We can start putting in workouts that will help us to get closer to that goal. So the mind, this goes back to mindset. I would never say never to the outcome that's in my heart. If it's in your heart, if it's really something that you desire, whatever that particular outcome is, first of all, you got to know and be sure that it's coming from you, because we are bombarded with so much foolishness and quote unquote overnight success through the social media landscape. I had someone say to me, she said, listen, I want to be a billionaire. And I was like, but you're not a millionaire. Like, what do you mean?
You're not a hundredaire.
Right. Like, why do you want to be a billionaire? Because you saw something on social media that looked fun and sexy. You don't really want to be a billionaire. That's not even your idea. That's somebody else's that you're borrowing. So the first thing is, like, get clarity, be still, turn off all of the exterior noise, get with yourself and ask yourself, what is it that I really, truly want to do? How do I want to impact the planet? How do I want to serve? What type of value do I want to bring to the marketplace? And then you can figure out what is your ultimate goal. Because if it's coming from you, then there's no reason for there to be a part of you that says, well, I may never get there. You may say, I don't know how I'm going to get there. That's different than saying, I feel like I'm never going to get there. It's different. It's like,
yeah, I hear you. So let me jump in real quick, Ed.
Yeah.
So you made such an important point. That's why I wanted to go back to it, to make sure your thoughts and what your vision for yourself is your own, because it's not just about the impact of social media. It's also the impact of your friends and family, the people that are surrounding you. So if they are inherently negative people that are not supporting your forward motion, you got to find new people.
Yep.
Right.
100%. Because
That's real.
It would be ideal to get support from our loved ones, family members, friends, but not everybody is going to be able to understand what it is that you're aspiring to. You know what, Tami, I find it interesting, just an observation. When I look at a lot of visionaries and their impact, and I pay attention to stories, interviews, I read articles, etc. There's a lot of them that you have no sense of their families. Like, they don't really talk about their parents. They don't really talk about their siblings. It's almost as if they came here of their own volition. And maybe I'm reading more into it than what needs to be. But I do find it interesting that with a lot of visionaries, you don't hear them saying, you're giving a lot of credit to family members. Sometimes you do, but more often than not, they don't. And I believe, this is my theory, I can't prove this, but I believe it. I believe it's because those family members, they couldn't see what they saw. They couldn't relate to where they wanted to go. And maybe they weren't, hating on them or trying to discourage them. Maybe they just were like, okay, well, you go do whatever that is. It's probably not going to happen. And so I think there's something to that the more, for me, the more pushback I get, the more people say, well, are you sure you really want to do that? I always know I'm on the right track when I get that kind of pushback from family members, friends, because people want to know you for who they know you as, whoever you used to be. They're not comfortable knowing you as a visionary, as someone who's going to do something spectacular with your life, because if they acknowledge the size and scope that Tami wants to live her life at, then they also have to acknowledge what they're not doing. And I find that a lot of people would rather put you down like a peg or two than to acknowledge, hey, maybe I need to step up my game.
Absolutely. I got to tell you, I didn't tell anybody. Like, when I'm really onto something, like, I feel like I'm excited about this podcast because I do believe we can give people the tools they need to, like, build resilience in all areas of their life. I didn't tell a single person in my family I was rebooting my podcast. And this is like week number 4. I think it's okay to get to a point in your life where you're just like, I'm doing it for myself, not doing it for like everybody else and for their approval.
Yes.
But you know, I just turned 55. That it took me 55 years to like get to that point of like, I actually don't care what you think.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's heavy, and we don't have time, but can I immediately ask you on the air if you'll come back again?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, like we talked about discipline, we touched on relationships, we touched on dreams, we touched on goals. And I feel like you and I could talk about this, you know, for years.
Long form, that's right.
Long form. So maybe we'll do a longer one. I can convince Soul Liberty to give us an hour. But yeah, I'd love to have you come back on. So listen, before we end, tell me what you have. I know you're out there like stomping the stages, you're changing lives all over the world. But I wanted to talk about first of all, we put in the chat, you can learn all about Ed and book him for speaking at BluntArtistry.com. And Ed, talk about your entrepreneurial ventures real quick. I know you took a dive into a new industry.
Yes. So speaking and training is my core. It's what I do. And I do that at conferences, companies, organizations, colleges, universities around the world. And that's my purpose. Life insurance and annuities is our business. So that's something that we build because to me, it's always been important as a speaker to not just speak, because people need to be able to relate, especially if you're in sales and leadership. I know what it's like to build a big business, what it's like to build a big sales team, et cetera. So life insurance and annuities, because we believe in educating the population, helping them to understand how it's changed and evolved, getting them the right information, and then helping them to make an informed decision about protecting the downside and their legacy. So Sunday nights, 8 p.m. EST. If you message me on social media at Ed Blunt, Facebook, Instagram, I will send you the link to hop on a call we do every Sunday, 8 p.m. EST. These are building blocks for success, no matter what you're doing in your life, family, relationships, career, etc. And then with life insurance and annuities, we do free educational sessions that are about 10 minutes long. Again, message me at Ed Blunt, and I'm happy to get you that info. We'll set you up so we can look at your particular situation as it pertains to you and help you have the best choices and options moving forward.
Awesome. And then Ed, I'll drop those links also on my website, TamiGaines.com, and we'll pop them into the Soul Liberty community so everybody has access. And I just want to thank you again for sitting at the table, dropping your knowledge, dropping your wisdom. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody next Monday for another edition of Tami's Table with my daughter, Haley Nelson, who's going to talk about her cancer journey and how it intersected with law school.
Wow.
So super excited. Yeah, next week is going to be powerful. So I'm encouraging everybody to jump on.
Well, congratulations to you, and thank you so much again for just having me on. I'm super excited and proud of what you're doing and how you're going to continue to impact the planet. So keep rising.
Thanks, Ed. You're the best. Have a great week, everyone.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.